Imagine if you were an emergency room doctor in Italy, receiving a patient at 3 a.m. He's wearing an Armani suit, a Rolex on his wrist, and speaks with a charming Italian accent. On the outside, he looks perfectly normal, perhaps even quite elegant. But when you check his vitals, you discover a shocking truth: a weak pulse, dangerous blood pressure, and, here is the scariest part, this patient insists he is perfectly healthy. He is still showing off his physical exam report from 1987 to the nurse. This is Italy in 2025. Italy's GDP grew by 0.7% in 2024, same as the previous year, while France grew by 1.1%, and Germany contracted by 0.2% during the same period. It looks okay on the surface, right? Until you realize this is a country that once surpassed the UK in 1987 to become the world's fifth largest economy. Until you discover that this economy is now essentially on life support, barely breathing on feeble growth. If you want to understand how an economy slides from its peak into the abyss, Italy is the perfect textbook case. Today, we are going to act like real doctors and conduct a comprehensive diagnosis on this once strong economic patient. From symptoms to causes, from acute attacks to chronic lesions, we will peel back the layers to reveal the truth of this complex case. Are you ready? Some diagnostic results might make you uncomfortable. Every doctor knows that to understand the current condition, you must first understand the patient's history. Italy's history can be traced back to an economic addiction that lasted for decades. If you owned an Italian fashion company in the 1980s, let's say a fledgling little Gucci factory, you faced fierce international competition. Chanel in Paris was investing millions to improve craftsmanship and upgrade quality. What do? Of course, you could invest in R&D and improve production processes, but Italy had a simpler method. You make a call to Rome. Hey, old friend, business is a bit tough. The government looks at trade data, nods, and says, "Don't worry, my friend." Then, the Bank of Italy would devalue the lira. Overnight, your handbags became 20% cheaper for the whole world. Not because you made them better, but because your currency turned into junk. This competitive devaluation strategy was like injecting the economy with steroids. The short-term effects were amazing, but the long-term consequences were fatal. From 443 lira to 1 Deutschmark when Italy joined the European monetary system in 1979, to 1,000 lira to 1 Deutschmark in 1995. In 20 years, the lira depreciated by more than half. The side effects of this drug appeared quickly. Devaluation made imports more expensive, pushing up inflation. To cope with inflation, Italy established an automatic wage adjustment mechanism, the famous scala mobile. As inflation rose, wages automatically rose with it. This created a perfect vicious cycle. Devaluation, to inflation, to wage hikes, to rising costs, to further devaluation. By 1992, a currency crisis erupted, with the lira hitting a low of 1,250 against the Deutschmark, forcing Italy to exit the European monetary system. But here is a uniquely Italian phenomenon: the booming underground economy. When the formal economy took a hit, a vast number of businesses turned to cash transactions and tax evasion. This gray zone helped cushion the crisis, but it also cultivated a culture of system avoidance that continues to erode Italy's economic health today. Then came 1999. Italy joined the euro. It was like forcing an addict to quit cold turkey. No gradual rehabilitation, no replacement therapy, just taking the drug away directly. From today on, you must compete on the same track as the Germans, with no shortcuts. Suddenly, since joining the Euro, Italian industrial output has lagged behind Germany by 40%. For decades, Italian companies never really exercised their competitive muscles. They had always relied on the crutch of currency devaluation. When the crutch was taken away, they realized they didn't know how to walk at all.
Quitting the addiction to currency devaluation was just the first step. The bigger problem is that the Italian economy suffers from severe growth phobia. Imagine you run a small factory producing leather accessories for luxury brands. You are the boss, your wife is the CFO, your eldest son manages production, your youngest daughter handles quality control, plus a few cousins handling various chores. It sounds very heartwarming, just like an Italian family movie. But this coziness is toxic. When your company needs to transform from a family workshop into a modern enterprise, the Italian model fails completely. You won't invest in AI-driven supply chain systems. You won't hire high-paid consultants to optimize processes, and you won't spend big on R&D. You just hope to survive until August so the whole family can go on vacation in Tuscany. Even more absurd is Italy's institutional design. If you want to hire your 15th employee, congratulations, you've stepped on a landmine. Suddenly, firing becomes nearly impossible. Union demands explode, and bureaucratic procedures triple. It's like the government is saying, if you dare to succeed, we will punish you. This growth phobia has deep historical roots. After World War II, Italy's reconstruction relied on thousands of small family businesses, which were flexible, resilient, and able to adapt quickly to change. But when globalization demanded economies of scale, this model became a shackle. Italian companies would rather stay small and beautiful than take on the risks and complexities of growth. The result? 90% of Italian enterprises remain under 10 employees. These aren't businesses, they are family reunions disguised as companies. Since 1999, Italy's total factor productivity has basically stagnated. While German companies became bigger and smarter, Italian companies chose never to grow up. If the Italian economy's infantile disease wasn't bad enough, now comes a more lethal threat. Italians are disappearing. Literally. Italy's working-age population is projected to decline by double digits between 2024 and 2050. Every day upon waking, the number of deaths exceeds the number of births. Italy's median age is 47. Imagine trying to innovate in a country where nearly half the population is over 47. How receptive do you think they are to new technologies? How open are they to change? But this isn't just a numbers problem. It's a structural crisis. Italy's pension system is designed like a Ponzi scheme, requiring more and more young workers to support more and more retirees. When the population pyramid inverts, the whole system collapses. Even more fatal is adverse selection. The smartest, most ambitious young Italians look at the scene before them: an aging society, rigid institutions, no opportunities, and make a rational decision. Run. 40% of Italian PhD graduates work abroad. Italy is like an expensive medical school that specializes in training talent for other countries. Those who stay? Usually, they are the ones who can't leave, or those who have resigned themselves to the status quo. This isn't Darwinian evolution. This is negative selection. The fittest leave, and the least fit reproduce. This creates a vicious cycle. Fewer economic opportunities leads to brain drain, leads to declining innovation capacity, leads to further economic stagnation. Italy has another world-class achievement, turning simple tasks into epic adventures. If you want to open a boutique winery in Tuscany,
Get ready for a baptism by bureaucratic fire. You need agricultural permits, winemaking permits, sales permits, environmental assessments, building permits, health inspections, tax registration, and even approval from the Heritage Protection Department. Because your wine cellar might be sitting on ancient Roman ruins, the whole process could take 3 to 5 years. But that's just the appetizer. Want to settle a business dispute? Italian civil cases take an average of 8 years to resolve. 8 years! You sign a contract when your child enters elementary school, and if the other party breaches it, you won't see the judgment until your child graduates from middle school. This bureaucracy has its historical origins. Italy unified relatively late, and different regions retained distinct legal traditions and administrative habits. Coupled with an over-reliance on state control during post-war reconstruction, layers of administrative structures were formed. Every department has its own interests and power, and no one is willing to simplify the process. Even worse, this complexity has spawned an entire intermediary industry: consultants, lawyers, and people with connections who specialize in helping businesses navigate bureaucratic procedures. This is not creating value, it is levying a complexity tax. This is why foreign investment flees Italy. Why choose a Kafkaesque bureaucratic nightmare when you can open a company online in Estonia or get everything done in a week in Singapore? Now let's see how Italy's most iconic industry, fashion, has become the perfect microcosm of this syndrome. The story of Gucci is a metaphor for the entire Italian economy. Founded in Florence by Guccio Gucci in 1921, it gradually became a global luxury giant. But family infighting in the 1980s led to the Gucci family's complete exit from the company in 1993. This was no accident. This is a fundamental flaw in the Italian business DNA. When a business needs to upgrade from a family workshop to a global group, the Italian model collapses. This family business trap is particularly deadly in Italy. First-generation entrepreneurs usually have vision and an adventurous spirit, but when power is passed to their children, disagreements often arise. Siblings fight for control, professional management is replaced by family politics, and corporate strategy serves family interests rather than market needs. The reality is even more brutal. In the first 3 quarters of 2024, more than 2,000 factories specializing in clothing, textiles, and leather goods closed down. The turnover of the Italian fashion industry is expected to drop by 5.3% in 2024. But the problem isn't just factory closures, it's the distortion of the value chain. About half of luxury goods are produced in Italy, but the profit margins for these manufacturers are only 10% or less, while the brand owners enjoy margins of over 30%. Italy is becoming the sweatshop for global luxury brands, providing world-class craftsmanship but receiving only meager manufacturing fees. Even more ironic is the ownership structure. French LVMH acquired Fendi, Bulgari, and Loro Piana. Kering controls Gucci and Bottega Veneta. Italy created these brands and nurtured the artisan tradition, but French groups own them and reap most of the profits. It's like parents raising a child, only to watch someone else harvest their success. If you gave Italy an economic CT scan, you would see a medical marvel. One body with 2 completely different circulatory systems. The north, from Milan to Venice, has a developed economy and excellent infrastructure. If northern Italy were independent, it would be one of the richest regions in Europe. But cross Rome to the south, and the picture is completely different. Crumbling infrastructure and economic depression. The per capita GDP in the south is about half that of the north. This isn't a minor regional difference. This is the gap between Germany and Tunisia within the same country. This division has deep historical roots. When Italy unified, the North had already begun industrializing, while the South was still a feudal agricultural society. Post-unification policies often favored the North, with the South becoming a source of raw materials and labor export. 2 world wars widened the gap further, and post-war reconstruction funds flowed mainly to the North. The infrastructure gap is shocking. Want to run modern logistics from Calabria? Your trucks will be stuck on single-lane roads built in the 70s. The Salerno-Reggio Calabria highway took over 50 years to complete, becoming a national joke. This is not just a construction issue. It reflects long-term unfair resource allocation and a lack of management capability. Even worse is the mafia tax. In many southern regions, businesses must pay protection money to organized crime, which amounts to an invisible tax on the entire economy. But the mafia is just a symptom. The real problem is the absence of state authority and the lack of social trust. As a result, the South has become a paradise for public sector employment. Large numbers of people are employed in various administrative positions, not for efficiency, but for political patronage. This creates a subsidy economy that relies on fiscal transfers from the North to keep running. Northern industrialists feel taxed to death just to subsidize Southern inefficiency. This resentment breeds separatist sentiment, further weakening national cohesion.
Now we come to the most lethal symptom: debt. Italy's national debt is about 2.9 trillion euros, accounting for 137% of GDP. Imagine every Italian, from newborns to centenarians, carrying a debt of about 48,000 euros. But this isn't ordinary debt. This is political debt. Politicians using future money to buy current votes for decades. Italy's public spending structure is severely distorted. Most funds go to pensions and social transfers rather than productive investment. This consumption-based debt does not create future income. It only accumulates endlessly. This is not investment in building the future. It is the cost of a life support system. Italy pays 80 to 90 billion euros annually just in interest on its debt. This money isn't building schools, fixing roads, or funding innovation. It's paying off the bills for past squandering. Even scarier is the spread game. The spread between Italian government bonds and German bonds is about 105 basis points for the period from mid-2024 to May 2025. This seemingly small number is actually a lifeline. When investors panic, perhaps due to a pandemic, war, or some politician's stupid remark, yields on Italian bonds skyrocket. If rates get too high, interest payments become unbearable, and the nation goes bankrupt. In 2011, this almost happened. Italy teetered on the brink of default, and the entire Eurozone was about to collapse. The ECB had to save the day with a promise to do whatever it takes. But here is a terrifying paradox. Italy is too big to fail, but also too big to bail. If Italy defaults, there isn't enough money to save it. It would be financial Armageddon. Beyond these structural issues, Italy faces a deeper crisis: the loss of innovation capacity. Italy's R&D investment is only 1.3% of GDP, far below the EU average of 2.2%, let alone innovation powerhouses like Germany and Sweden at 3 to 4%. This isn't just a funding issue, it's a mindset issue. Italian businesses and society have an instinctive fear of disruptive innovation. It threatens vested interests and challenges traditional authority. Even more fatal is the innovation talent shortage. Italy's university system is still obsessed with traditional disciplines, lacking interdisciplinary training and practical skills development. Graduates either lack the skills the market needs or take their skills and flee abroad.
This innovation anemia is particularly deadly in the era of digital transformation. While other nations embrace AI, IoT, and e-commerce, Italy is still struggling with basic digital processes. If you were a doctor consulting with me, you would ask, "Doctor, can this patient be saved?" The answer is complex. Italy possesses vast private wealth, profound cultural heritage, and a strong industrial tradition. Made in Italy remains one of the most valuable brands in the world. Italy's GDP reached $2.37 trillion in 2024, still making it the world's 8th largest economy. But recovery requires radical surgery. Italy needs to completely restructure labor laws, use digitalization to clear out the cancerous cells of bureaucracy, significantly increase female employment rates, modernize southern infrastructure, and lower debt through real growth rather than borrowing. More importantly, a cultural transformation is needed. Italy needs to shift from protecting vested interests to embracing change, from family-oriented to professionalism, and from risk aversion to innovation and adventure. The question is, does Italy have the political will to undergo this painful treatment? Every reform causes short-term pain, and politicians need to win the next election. Forecasts show that by 2027, Italy will be the only country in the Eurozone with a GDP growth rate still below 1%. This isn't rehabilitation, this is chronic disease management. Italy stands at a crossroads. One path is the painful but necessary radical surgery, completely reforming the system, embracing modernization, and relearning how to compete. The other path is Venice-fication, slowly sinking into a beautiful theme park for tourists worldwide to visit, inhabited by tour guides and waiters reminiscing about the glory of the empire they once built. The clock is ticking. Every day of delay makes the treatment more difficult. Every choice for comfort over reform is a choice for a slow death rather than a painful rebirth. Italy once rose from the ruins of World War II to become an industrial powerhouse within 2 decades. This country has had miracles before, and perhaps it can create another one. But this requires not a doctor, but the patient's own determination. Sometimes the hardest diagnosis isn't finding the cause, but getting the patient to admit they are actually sick. And Italy is still showing off that physical exam report from 1987. What do you think about Italy's future? If you are Italian or have a deep affection for this country, I would love to hear your thoughts. Tell me where this diagnosis is wrong. Share the innovation and hope you see, or tell me why you chose to leave. If this economic checkup was useful to you, please hit the like button. It's the only algorithm growing faster than Italy's debt. Don't forget to share this with friends who care about the European economy, and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis. See you next time.